What is your name and your profession?
Hi, my name is Andrea Beidelman. I am a sideline beekeeper and a honey producer in the Mid-Atlantic region. I currently have beehives on 8 different properties, and those apiaries are specifically for organic crop pollination, everything from berries to apples to pumpkins. And we also produce honey from those hives.
In what ways have your hives been affected?
Colony collapse disorder has a direct effect on my profession in that the economic viability of having to replace our honeybees year after year becomes a financial burden, and eventually we have no other choice but to go out of business. And we've seen that over the past decade with some of the major commercial beekeepers, and that they just can't afford to keep replacing. And so then they're not meeting pollination needs of crops throughout the nation. And this then becomes an issue for our food supply.
Are you involved with any clubs or organizations that help create awareness, or do you participate in activities within a beekeepers association?
The effects that colony collapse disorder could have on our worldwide food supply is potentially devastating. If you stop to consider 1 in every 3 bites of food that we consume is directly reliant on honeybee pollination, that's huge. Agriculturally, the crops would not be sufficiently pollinated, therefore, yield would decrease. Environmentally, likewise, pollination would not occur to the level needed to feed our wildlife, and that would be devastating as well. And then, of course, our food supply for our worldwide population would be decreased with the extinction of the honeybee by approximately 1/3. And there's no way we could feed our population with that kind of reduction.
Do you think enough is being done to save the bees?
I'm involved with various clubs and organizations that help create awareness for the plight of the honeybee and colony collapse disorder. We participate specifically with the Mid-Atlantic Honeybee Consortium and also with various beekeeping associations such as the Eastern Apiculture, various state and county organizations, beekeepers associations as well. And as far as if I think enough is being done to save the honeybees, I certainly think there's a lot of work ahead of us. We're still seeing like considerable losses, and as I've mentioned before, that's unsustainable for the industry. And I feel like lobbying efforts are very important at this point. Our government needs to provide some kind of support to the industry until we can get a handle on how to manage the bees more effectively with exposure to certain pesticides and herbicides if we're not willing to ban them, as the European Union has done. And incidentally, the European Union has several countries in Europe have banned the use of specific neonicotinoid pesticides, and they've seen considerable growth in their honeybee populations. So that's actually very positive news, and I feel like lobbying efforts here in the U.S. would definitely help with moving in that direction, which would benefit us all.
Hello, my name is Chet. I'm a second generation beekeeper. I've been keeping bees now for about 45 years. I started as a young man. My father introduced me to beekeeping. I was quite reluctant to start out in the beekeeping hobby. I over time and through the literature that my father collected and that I read, I became more interested in the honeybees, and just watching him get his full enjoyment out of taking care of the bees, the hives, understanding what they needed to survive during the spring, how he made sure the woodenware was all cleaned up and ready for winter time, and just the consistency of the bees and how they were how relatively easy it was to manage the bees once you understood their behavior pattern and had a general understanding of the structure of the colony. It just turned out to be a real great connection between my father and myself, as well as a wonderful connection with the outside world, learning so much about flowers and the bees. I'm now taking care of bees at another level where honey production is the key to our small business, where we sell hive products, candles, skincare products, honey, of course, propolis, and pollen. Whatever we can collect from the hives and share between the bees and our customers. And having a number of hives in different locations, I'm able to retrieve a pretty good nectar flow based on where we put the hives, and getting understanding of the area around, the flora around the area in which the bees are able to collect the nectar to produce honey. So I have a lot of out yards in the region. I'm in the mid-Atlantic region. Maryland is my primary state of where the bees are located, and been doing it, like I said, for about 45 years, and hope to keep on taking care of the honeybees. What does colony collapse disorder mean to me as a beekeeper? Well, colony collapse disorder, and as well as other bee diseases, pests, predators, all of these things that negatively impact the hive is quite a concern as a beekeeper. But colony collapse disorder especially sends chills through the industry. We're trying to understand what the cause is, number one. We have a number of different scientists working on the problem, and as a beekeeper, I look to these scientists for advice and a direction in which we can figure out a way to help the bees enjoy a healthy colony. And that's what beekeeping is all about, is managing the honeybees in a way where they have all of necessary items in order to be successful in honey collection and in brood rearing and in increasing the population of the colony. But colony collapse disorder was introduced through the Varroa mite. I think colony collapse disorder is a number of things, but the first thing that comes to mind with colony collapse disorder is a parasitic mite that it's invaded the American shores back in 1985. It was introduced by mistake with Australian queens being imported to the U.S. And the mite jumped ship, let's say, and ended up in our area. And the mites, what the parasitic mite does is it's like a tick, a bee tick, and not only does it feed off the hemoglobin of the honeybee, but it also has the capability of introducing a virus or viruses into the bee itself, as well as, of course, when you're feeding off the hemoglobin or the life fluid of the honeybee, you're weakening the bee as well. So with this mite problem that occurred in 85 and has been a real problem throughout the decades, we've tried to manage the mites in a number of different ways. We're successful in using pest strips at the beginning of the problem. We thought we'd had it under control, And then the mites, the parasitic mites, became the pest resistance, the pest strips. The mites were able to adapt to the different types of solutions used in order to control the mite population with the bees. And so we still have to deal with the mites on a annual basis, semi-annual basis with the bees. And again, it seems to have caused a weakening of the honeybee, especially in the winter time when the bees cluster tightly together. They're not as active, and it gives the mites an opportunity to feed off of the bees in close proximity. And what this does is start to weaken the bees during the winter when they're in cluster, and we'll call it hibernation, but they really don't hibernate. It's a cluster of bees that tightly wrapped around the queen in order to protect the queen during these cold winter months. And the mites have a feeding frenzy on the bees at that point. And what we see is coming out of the spring is that the bee population, in order for them to restart procreation in the early spring, they need the population to be at a certain level. But the varroa mite has been very destructive during the winter, and the bees do not have that population to properly start procreation in the spring. They don't have enough designated worker bees. They don't have enough bees to keep the brood warm. And so that's caused a tremendous amount of problems for natural or what we call wild bees. And the wild bees are basically the bees that have swarmed away from managed beehives into the wild. Here in Maryland, there's no population of wild honeybees anymore. So any bees that leave the managed area of a beekeeper ends up in a hollow tree somewhere. During that winter, the winter months, the first winter, they're usually killed off by the mites. But the mites have brought on a lot of different problems, and that is with viruses. Our bees here in the U.S. Did not have what was called the Israeli virus, which was introduced by the varroa mite, and that's caused a weakening of the nervous system. It's caused a weakening, generally weakening of the immune system of the bee, and so now that we have a weaker bee, we have one that is under a lot of stresses. We see what we call a collapse, and that's simply where the bees can't procreate. They start to leave the hive in large numbers and die off in the wild. So using a number of different management techniques in order to cause or disrupt the population or the procreation and the population of the varroa mite, beekeepers have shifted a lot of their energy and attention to trying to control the varroa mite as well as maintaining the overall health of the colony of bees. So it's really changed our management style. It's actually offered up a number of different creative ideas of how we can control the mite population without negatively impacting the honeybees, trying to use organic methods, trying to use management style methods, trying to understand what is the worst environment for the varroa mite to try to procreate. So we create a number of different obstacles and try to disrupt the population expansion of the varroa mite. I'm optimistic that eventually we'll be able to control the problem with the varroa mites. I think the bees, through breeding traits that would be difficult for the varroa mite to live in that environment with bees that say are better grooming, bees that are a little bit more aggressive and picking off the varroa mites. Just in general, making a varroa mite resistant honeybee over time. And I think with a lot of different breeding techniques for the queens, the honeybee queens, we can see some improvement in the overall health of the colony with different honeybee traits that are incorporated into the bee to cause disruption in the varroa mite population. The frame of drone cells that we encourage the varroa mite to lay her eggs in, we usually will pull that out in about 16 days, and we can control a number of kill off a number of mites that way. We take the frame out, we freeze it, and then the bees will clean it back up and start the process over again. So we've changed our management techniques, we've changed our siting techniques where we place the hives. We're using a lot more chemicals and solutions trying to eradicate or reduce the number of varroa mites. We use screen bottom boards in case the mites fall off the bee during flight, or if they fall to the bottom of the hive, there's no access for them to crawl back up onto a bee. So it's really become a game of, well, not a game, but almost a balancing act of trying to keep the mite population low while we're expanding the honeybee population and get the honeybee population up so much quicker before the mites are able to take over. And so that probably takes up resources per hive of about $35–40 a year annually for hives, and it doesn't guarantee a success rate as well. The other thing that has affected our beekeeping is we have losses, a considerable amount of losses per year. So we're doing a lot more than we used to is we're in this early spring, say around the second week of March, we're purchasing more packages of honeybees. In other words, we're reintroducing new honeybees to our colonies, adding to our colonies each year because we have a good percentage of winter losses. And that didn't occur years ago. We were able to go ahead and have a number of our bees survive the winter. And then at that point, early spring was a wonderful time of year where we were dividing up the hives. So each hive that came out of the winter, we were able to make 2 or 3 hives for spring, which was a real boost to honey production. That no longer is as easy to do as it once was. Yeah, I think to just sum it up with CCD and the introduction of the varroa mites into the honeybee population, I would say basically the costs of taking care of the bees have gone up quite a bit. The management style has been more labor, more time consuming, a little bit less rewarding because we do lose a number of bees and we've tried so darn hard to keep them alive, and also sometimes you just are amazed on how quickly the hives can deteriorate when they are struck by a combination of factors, including the CCD disorder. So simply put, a honeybee and the flower should be researched together. The honeybees, the soil, and the flowers, they're all connected.